Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Saturday Classics podcast, the grand episode. I'm Chase. I have my co-host here, Joey, and we have had a long and eventful 3 weeks of football, and we're just going to get straight into it, hopping into the first game of Kansas State, Iowa State, the game in Dublin. My first thoughts on this game was obviously the turnover battle, back to back to back to back turnovers starting in the first half. That was the most interesting game of the part for me. Joey, your thoughts on this game?
I mean, yeah, like you already brought up, the back-to-back turnovers was incredibly shocked to say the least. Both teams fumbling twice, and then no turnover. Then it was a turnover clean game the rest of the way. Um, Iowa State's quarterback Rocco Beck did not really have a great day. 50% completion rating, 6.5 yards per completion. Just didn't seem like he was really airing it out that much. And yeah, the run game was decent. What am I saying? The run game was terrible. 2.8 yards per carry, nothing special, but they made the big plays when it matters, and they came out with the win.
That is true. That is true. Moving on next, Andrew Luck, the new GM of the Stanford Cardinal, coming out in his first ever game and taking a loss to Hawaii. Thoughts on this one?
Just a final second loss. They obviously Hawaii went down the field, got in the field goal range, kicked the field goal. Stanford. This was probably one of the more forgettable games. I actually have to double check. Your thoughts?
I would say this is a different look for Stanford than we have seen in a long time. Stanford actually had their first rushing touchdown in this game, and I'm pretty sure over 2 seasons. And they have a good rushing quarterback now in Ben Branson, the transfer from Oregon State.
Yep.
But I will say, Hawaii did play great in this game. Currently,
Very well.
is
Very
is
well.
stand Hawaii is standing at 2-1 after they took a big loss at Arizona after this game. But Micah Alejado did play great in this game. He's been playing good football throughout these 3 weeks. Now, I don't think that Hawaii is going to be the Group of Five team in the college football
Yeah,
playoffs. We all
yeah,
know
they're
who
not.
that is going through these first weeks. We all know who that team's going to be.
Exactly.
But definitely Hawaii could be a team to look out for in the Big 12 after looking at the fall of Boise State. Which, speaking of the next game on our list, South Florida versus Boise State. I know
I,
what I think, but
I know
I
what
need
I
to know what
think.
you think.
We're gonna start this up. Ashton Jeter should have won it last year. After this abysmal performance from Boise State. There's no reason he shouldn't have won it. Like, obviously, I understand you're a big Travis Hunter guy, two-way ability. It was great, but he carried that team all
He
year,
did.
and then
He did.
they get rocked by USF. Right. The USF. They get rocked by US. I don't know. Like, he meant so much to that team, and now that he's gone, it's just gonna be misery. And I wait in Idaho, right?
Yeah, Ida.
Like,
If you ask me, I think Boise State in this game did not play their brand of football. They still
it's
have
not.
two great running backs. They have the Fresno State transfer Malik Sherrod, and they have Sire Gaines, who their coach called potentially the next Ashton Genty. But you have Maddox Madsen throwing 46 passing
Okay,
attempts.
let's hold that right there. Next, Ashton Genty, that might be a stretch, but
It was definitely a stretch. He only had 44 yards.
yeah,
But back to the
yeah,
point. Maddox Madsen on 46 passing attempts is insane for a Boise State offense that was so built upon running last year to just completely flip your playbook like that. I don't know what their coach is thinking. But on the other hand, South Florida, they are dangerous. Last year, they did not have Byron Brown, which is why they flew under a lot of people's radars last year. But now they have the transfers, and Byron Brown
yeah.
is. I can confidently say Byron Brown probably is one of, if not the most electric quarterbacks in college football right now. I mean, just in this game alone,
Yeah, and
210 passing
obviously,
yards, two rushing touchdowns, one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in college football. And I don't think that's insane to say.
yeah, I mean, not crazy. Obviously, there's another game involving USF that we're gonna get to later. That's to later, but yeah, like USF hasn't looked too shabby these first 3 weeks.
Especially their other weapons, Alvin Chaz Singleton. They have weapons all around, but Byron Brown, the force driving the team. is definitely the main focal point for USF. The next game we want to talk about, a game that flew under a lot of people's radars at first, Nebraska versus Cincinnati. Now, I personally did not watch too much of this game. This game was a slow
I
burner.
didn't
But
watch it at all.
going into this game, going into the season on my other podcast, people know I was very high on Cincinnati going into this season. Brendan Sorsby, Tawee Walker, Cyrus Allen. I was very high on the Bearcats this season. And then they walk out week one and take a loss to Dylan Raiola in Nebraska. So this game kind of confused me because Dylan Raiola did have a great game in his sophomore debut. 243 yards, 2 touchdowns on 33 for 43 passing. 76.2 QBR. So the question I want to ask, less about the game, more about Raiola. What do you see him doing in this sophomore year, and what do you see his potential being after this starting game, after the sophomore year? Where do you think Nebraska will be in maybe his senior year?
In senior year, I could definitely see Nebraska competing if he develops properly. Obviously, with him starting as a freshman and everything. I don't know really what he can turn into, really. Because obviously we know who he gets compared to, but that's just because he's looks like him. But he won't be that. He won't be
No,
that.
definitely not.
But like, what this is maybe like a Drew Aller. Yeah, maybe something like that. Just someone strong arm. Drew Aller. He has legs. The legs he can do. I hope to see him develop, but yeah, I just hope he can like get into a position where like Nebraska can compete for the Big Ten. They won't win it, but if they can compete, I'd like to see that.
The next game on the list, Tarleton State, a team not a lot of people even heard of before this week, coming out and beating an Army team who just last year was in the AP polls. Now, we're going to talk about Army later as well because we did have them on the upset predictions and they did come out successful for me. But Army, now that they've lost to Tarleton and they beat a team that we're going to talk about later, Army is a very confusing team. What do you see Army doing in the American this year with USF on the role that they're going on?
I mean, obviously with the role USF's going, I don't think they're gonna win it. Just obviously with running the ball, they have to keep doing that effectively because that's all they do. For the 6 times a game they pass the ball. But it's just if they can like get back on track to maybe look like what they did last year, that probably just what I want to see from Army going forward.
Next game, Wake Forest and Kennesaw State. This game doesn't sound too interesting on the surface, but look at the
Yes, it
box
doesn't.
score. Wake Forest only won by 1 point against a team who just 2 years ago was an FCS team. So my question for this game is, especially under new coach in Kennesaw State, a team a lot of people have had in college football 25, rebuilding them to national championships. If they're only losing by 1 point to Wake Forest, now they did lose by 4 scores the next week to Indiana, but that's a different story. If they're competing like this with another Power 4 school, where does their potentially stand in the future as far as Kennesaw State being a potential group of 5 team maybe 10 years out in the future? Is that a possibility for the Owls?
Maybe just if they we get that NIL money from EA if people keep playing with them, but it's going to be really hard. Yeah, sorry about that. That was just my brother's friend. But if they can just keep just improving and finding just random hidden gems, like just hidden gems, like not random, but random hidden gems from recruitment, they could turn to something.
Next game, Auburn and Baylor. Now, another team I was high on going into this season was the Baylor Bears. I've talked to a Big 12 expert, Pete Souza, and he was saying that one of the teams to look out for were the Baylor Bears. Sawyer Robinson, Bryson Washington. They have a lot of weapons going into this year, and then they come out to Auburn, who yes is an SEC team, but they definitely have struggled within the past few years. Really, ever since the Cam Newton era or since Bo Nix, they have had big struggles competing with other Power 4 teams. And they come out with Jackson Arnold, the Oklahoma transfer, who had a amazing rushing game, amazing two-way quarterback, but they seem like a very dangerous rushing team. So, what are your expectations maybe for Auburn going into this season competing in the SEC?
Obviously, this run was very impressive from what I've seen from Jackson Arnold. Obviously, with averaging 8.6 yards per carry, and if he can keep that up, I don't think they'll be in contention with like Georgia, Texas, Florida, LSU, like those top. But this is a step in right direction to rebuilding the program that was once so dominant when they were with Cam Newton and Bo Nix 10 years ago.
Next thing I want to talk about, it's going to be a rough topic for me. Georgia Tech, Colorado. If I'm going to keep it frank, front and center, the box score looks close. This game looked competitive, but Colorado got trampled over by Haynes King. Haynes King, 13 for 20 attempts, 143 yards, 7.2 yards per throw. He did have an interception, but that's not the vocal point of what Haynes King is as a quarterback. 19 carries, 156 yards, 8.2 yards per carry, and 3 rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. Georgia Tech as a whole had 320 rushing yards on 47 attempts on Colorado. I'm going to talk about my thoughts on Colorado after this question. Where do you see Georgia Tech in the ACC? Because we've seen Clemson throughout the past week. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. Lost LSU, struggled against Troy. Bill Belichick's North Carolina team does not look too competitive. NC State looks decent. Wake Forest is iffy. A lot of teams in the ACC are very unsure of where they're at. But Georgia Tech seems to be rolling. So where do you see Georgia Tech? Oh, I forgot to mention Florida State. We're going to talk about them later. Rolling as well. Where do you see Georgia Tech being in the ACC?
I'm not really sure because obviously the ACC is. I think it's Clemson's conference to lose. Just based on how they've looked these past few weeks, I think it's Clemson's Kid Club potentially becoming a Heisman candidate. Um, we don't know. But obviously, there's other ones. Obviously, Florida State has looked much better than last year after DJU, maybe the worst quarterback I've ever seen play a professional football game or just play a season. Just play a season of football. Finally left. I don't know how he's on the Chargers, I believe. Yeah.
The team I like. But we're not going to talk about that. Yeah. Keep going.
And then obviously you got Miami, which we'll get into later with the big upset over Notre Dame. Carson Beck surprised me a lot, obviously. So I just don't know if they'll be able to compete in the ACC with more of these topper echelon teams.
Now, Colorado. I am extremely disappointed.
You should be.
Last year, we led the Big 12 in sacks. We were one of the best run-stopping teams in college football. And we didn't lose that many people off the line. We still have Aleem McNeil. I'm struggling to name players. We still have a lot of people coming back on this defensive line. And we just get straight up ran over by a team still running the triple option. I'm blown away. Now, what I will say, in this game, I fell in love with Kaidon Salter. I thought in this game, Kaidon Salter overthrew some passes, yes, but Colorado, new players, seniors go out, all the transfers come in. First game, I'm not going to blame you for overthrowing your guys. It's the first game of the season against real comp. But I really thought Kaidon Salter played well in this game. I really liked what I saw out of DeKalen Taylor, running back out of Incarnate Word. Really played well in that game as a receiving back more than a running back. Michael Welch, he was one of my favorite players coming out of Colorado last year. I really liked him. The receiving core as a whole, I'm not sure of what it's coming out to be because I don't really see a true receiver one that Colorado has right now. Marion Miller, Isaiah Harge, Draylon Miller, Joseph Williams, Quentin Gibson, who else can I name? Sincere Brown. They have a lot of very good receivers, but last year Colorado had even with all the receiver ones that they had at their respective schools. Like last year, Jimmy Horn was amazing at USF. Will Shepard was amazing at Vanderbilt. LaJohntay Wester was amazing at FAU. But the receiver one was Travis Hunter. No doubt about it. The best receiver on the field was Travis Hunter. But when I watch Colorado this year, I don't see anybody that's the best receiver on the field. I think that's an even playing field. And especially with their quarterback situation, which we didn't see in this game, we're going to talk about that in the next week. But I'm very unsure about this Colorado team. I don't know what to expect anymore. I had very high expectations. I saw with the transfers that had coming in a Big 12 championship potentially. But now I don't know what to look for because everything's changing, and at the same time, everything's changing, and with everything's changing, nothing is set in stone. Everybody's job is up for grabs. Kaidon Salter, who led Liberty to a Fiesta Bowl against Oregon, got benched. Kaidon Salter, who is tied with, I'm pretty sure, Cade Klubnik for the most touchdowns responsible for in the FBS this year, got benched for a backup quarterback. So, who was the player of the week? Ryan Staub was player of the week in the next week. But we're gonna get to that game when we get to that game. I'm not sure of what to expect from this Colorado team, but the next game we have on the list is a game that we can for sure talk about as long as I talked about this game.
I'm yapping about this one.
Texas
about this one.
And Ohio State. Take it away. Just take it away.
All right. So it's been hard. I can't really watch football on Sundays because I have to work, but I did end up trying to sneak. I was sneaking watch this game just because I want to see Texas succeed. I want to see Texas succeed. This was a disgraceful performance. We're gonna obviously talk about Arch Manning, who was a key player we have to talk about. Just did not look good. Didn't. Threw a pick, fumbled on the 1 yard line, or was that? Yeah, I believe it was him who fumbled on the 1 yard line. What am I right about that?
I gotta look.
They were like going for fumbles. Yeah, I think they were going for a sneak, and someone fumbled. I forget who fumbled, but I'm thinking it was Arch. The defense looked solid. I would say that just the offense they couldn't get going. Cuffing Arch it's just Arch. He needs to be better. Like I understand we're putting a lot on him because of his last name, but he has to be better. He was a 5-star recruit. He has to be better. Like he was better because this is a team that has national championship aspirations. Arch Manning has so many weapons around him to use to his advantage. And it just seemed like he was just uncomfortable in the pocket. Granted, we're talking about the reigning national champions, but like I do still expect more because for the past few years, Texas has never been able to beat these like powerhouse teams. Obviously, we saw they lost to Georgia twice last year. They lost to Ohio State in the college football playoff, and the year before they lost to Washington. Which I mean, it's granted it's Washington, but that's when they could have won the national championship if Michigan wasn't that good. So, yeah, if Texas can't show up in these big games, then Steve Sarkisian, we're gonna have to have a conversation if he's on the hot seat.
Now, what I will say about this game is, at the end of the day, this was a clash of two top 3 teams. Say what you want about how Arch played. Say what you want about how Julian Sayin played. Say what you want about how
I only talked about Texas.
Jeremiah.
We talked about Ohio State.
Jeremiah Smith didn't play that good in his first game.
Everyone just didn't play great, besides the defenses.
Yeah, this was the battle of the best in college football. These were 2 top 3 teams coming into the season. These were 2 teams who were in the college football quarterfinal last year. This was supposed to be a battle. This game was not supposed to look good for any team. This wasn't expected to be a high-scoring shootout, 42-45 game-winning field goal kind of game. No, these were 2 teams who last year were winning games off of their defense and off of their speed. and they came in, and neither of them could have got that going. Now, I will say, Julian Sayin, even though this wasn't a big offensive game for either team, Julian Sayin did play well in this game. He played much better in the next week. But Julian Sayin did have a very good game. Carnell Tate only two catches, but 2 electric catches when he had them. I like what I'm seeing out of Carnell Tate, especially stepping up into a role after Emeka Egbuka leaves. Jeremiah Smith, he was a player of the week, and the next week we're going to talk about him later.
But we don't have to say much about Jeremiah Smith. We know how good he is.
But we're going to hop into the next headline game, LSU versus Clemson. I watched this game. This was a upgrade in the play of Texas and Ohio State, and a downgrade of the teams. Watching both of these games, it felt like the same thing to me. Arch and Cade Klubnik, I feel like, had a similar game. Cade Klubnik did not play that well in this game, only 50% completion rating, 230 yards, but he had an interception. The offense overall was just moving very slow under Cade Klubnik. And on the other hand, LSU didn't pick it up until very late. Garrett Nussmeier did play well in this game, 28 for 38, 232 yards, 1 touchdown. But Caden Durham did a lot of work for this offense early. And when Clemson started to shut down the run, the game got stagnant for both teams. So my question for you is, you said this was Clemson's conference to lose. The ACC is Clemson's conference to lose. The playoff spot is Clemson's to lose. But after they played like this against LSU, who they most likely could very well see in the college football playoffs, because we don't know how the SEC is going to look anymore with all the upsets that have happened in the past. We don't know how the SEC is going to look. What do you see Clemson's peak as? How will they bounce back off this for the rest of the season, especially how they played in the next week? We're going to talk about that. Where do you see Clemson's peak being when they get to the college football playoffs? How far do you see them going with that if they look this stagnant against a team they're going to play at that point?
I mean, it just all depends on the path that they have, because obviously we saw Oregon had a brutal path last year to get there with things going south if they ended up beating Ohio State, Texas, and then either Georgia or Notre Dame. I don't know if they will. I think they'll get the bye. That's one thing I know. They will get the bye. But it just all depends on how the rest of this plays out. Because if I'm going to pull up the college football things, or the college football top 25, and hold on, let me check real quick. So we currently have Clemson as 12. They would be out of the college football playoff as of now.
Which, deeming how they played in their last 2 weeks, isn't a crazy argument to make.
Isn't crazy, but I still think they are definitely easily the most talented team in the ACC, with the best QB in the ACC and Cade's club. Just overall, I think they have just a solid roster all around, and it's obviously because they haven't been the same program since Trevor Lawrence. Was there and then left to be shitty in Jacksonville. But I think if any year for Clemson to bounce back, it is this year. They just see, because obviously the ACC was getting much weaker. I still think it's a long season. We have a way to go, and I just expect Clemson to get on track, assert themselves as the best team in the ACC over Miami, over Florida State, over NC State. I don't know. I don't pay attention that much to ACC football. But it's still Clemson's conference to lose, and they will keep proving that further and further.
The next game, it was Viva La Vida in Doak Campbell Stadium. How the rich fall. Alabama used to rule the world. Nick Saban in A.J. McCarron, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, Tua, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith. Name all the NFL
Jalen
players.
Waddle, Henry Ruggs, Quinn Williams, Minka. I just had to name a
Name
few more.
all the NFL players you want. Alabama
I can name a lot.
used to rule the world. They walk into Doak Campbell Stadium, and your Saturday Classics, one of the players of the week for week 1, Tommy Castellanos, came in fresh transfer out of Boston College, beat Florida State last year, but that's not a very big accomplishment considering who Florida State was last year.
They had the worst QB I've ever seen. I'm just gonna say that.
Alabama is not who they used to be. That feels like common knowledge, but when you say it out loud, knowing who Alabama was in the past, that doesn't feel like a real statement.
Like, they are not the team that's going undefeated and will make the national championship anymore. They're just not. And I'm going to go off this. The big thing of reason why is we all know it's the departure of Nick Saban. And it ain't even just from the fact that Kalen DeBoer has not established the culture that Nick Saban's established, but it's also because they're not getting the recruits. Right after Saban retired, a lot of commits decommitted from Alabama because the reason they went was to be coached by Nick Saban, and they went, they did. He retired, and now is on college football game day, and they're just at different schools now. And then with going and Ryan Williams, who was one who stayed committed, obviously is just incredibly talented receiver. No Jeremiah Smith, but still, I just had to mention Ryan Williams because I'm a big Ryan Williams fan. Without this culture that Kalen DeBoer's Kalen DeBoer has not established yet, and just not having the talent that they had back in like 2017, they're just not the same program anymore, and it's just kind of fun to watch.
Now, what I will say is what you said is obvious. This is not the Alabama we used to know. This isn't the Saban Alabama.
It's all Saban was the key behind all of it.
By all means, I don't think we can immediately rush in and say that Alabama sucks now. Alabama's not.
Absolutely
We can't say that though, because say what you want, Ty Simpson still threw the ball pretty well.
He had solid. Yeah, he's solid.
23 for 43, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jeremy Bernard, 8 receptions for 146 yards. Ryan Williams did get locked up a little bit. 5 receptions for 30 yards. Did get locked up a little bit. But their rushing game isn't what they used to be. But I don't think, call me crazy for this, I don't think it's right to jump on the Alabama hate train now so early. Because if you ask me, Florida State just played like they wanted it more watching that game.
Yeah.
Florida State
had something to prove after last year.
Florida State, Tommy Castellanos came into the season back in July, and I forget what the specific quote was, but he's basically saying he was going to go and beat Alabama, and that's what he went and did. He wanted it more. Gavin Sawchuk wanted it more. Makai Danzy wanted it more. Jalen Lucas wanted it more. Squirrel White wanted it more. Everybody on the Seminoles is hungry. The fans at Doak Campbell are hungry. Jay Norvell is hungry. Everybody wants Florida State to win, and Florida State more than anybody wants to win. And they came out against Alabama, and they showed that they just wanted it more. I don't think that Alabama deserves the hate that they got for losing that game. I just think we seriously underrated Florida State. But this would be a great time to go over the Saturday Classics Player of the Week for Week 1. One of our 2 players of the week, Tommy Castellanos. Tommy Castellanos went 9 for 14 for 152 yards, 10.9 yards per throw, 85.2 QBR, and then rushing the ball, 16 carries for 78 yards, 4.9 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. It's not crazy to say that without Tommy Castellanos, Alabama wins this game. Tommy Castellanos single-handedly dismantled the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, because at least one Castellanos is showing up for me. Yeah,
Castellanos. But
yeah, he's
other than that, the Florida State running game is amazing. Makai
yeah,
Danzy is a receiver, has insane speed. Gavin Sawchuk, the running back out of Oklahoma, the transfer, absolute dog. That run was insane. Um, yeah, Florida State is definitely a team to watch out for. If there's anybody that I would say is going to take the spot over Clemson, it would be Florida State, at least for me. The next game I want to get into, we're going to be talking about a lot of Kansas State in this podcast. Kansas State versus North Dakota. Not North Dakota State, just
North Dakota.
just North Dakota. And then Kansas State walks out with a 3-point win over
That's just embarrassing.
again, not North Dakota State,
North
North
Dakota.
Dakota.
I think 7 people live there. Like,
I'm going to talk about this because I love the Big 12. Like,
yeah,
I have a big passion for the Big 12. So I was incredibly high on Kansas State. I was high on a lot of teams in the Big 12. Cincinnati, Colorado, Kansas State. I was even a little bit of an Iowa State fan.
Always high on Colorado.
A little bit of a Baylor fan. I was really excited to see Kansas State blossom this year, especially the way they played last year. Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards. They did lose DJ Goodell, but you lose seniors everywhere you go. Jace Brown, my favorite receiver in college football, no doubt. But you walk out against North Dakota and you take a 3-point win to an FCS team. Mind you, the North Dakota quarterback, Gary Kaminsky, 223 for 38, 231 yards, and 1 touchdown. One of their running backs had 8 carries for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. The North Dakota quarterback had 2 rushing touchdowns himself. And then, so this confused me on Kansas State's part. And then Avery Johnson, statistically, if you don't look at his QBR, he was slinging the ball. He had a great game. But only 57.4 QBR, 318 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jace Brown did have a great game, 12 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown. And Dylan Edwards is injured. So I don't want to fully count out Kansas State yet, because I have hope that they're going to wake up and realize they have Avery Johnson, one of the most raw talented quarterbacks in college football. They have Jace Brown, one of the most underrated, and probably if he was on a better front and center Power 4 team, could be one of the better receivers.
Ohio State, he would be like nationally known.
He would be nationally known. So I still have hope for this Kansas State team. I think they can come out in the next few weeks and perform and prove that they still know how to play decent football. But for right now, I left watching that game incredibly disappointed in the Wildcats. The next game, the Battle of the Orange, Syracuse versus Tennessee, and there's no easy way to put it. There's no
Tennessee.
There's no straight. There's just a straight way. Syracuse fans got thrashed, 45-26, and the transfer Joey Aguilar went insane.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah. So obviously, the big headline for Tennessee this offseason was using Nico. Yeah, how do you say his last name?
Iamaleava.
Nico Iamaleava. Nico Iamaleava because this wasn't what NIL was supposed to be. That's why. But besides that, Tennessee came out, they dominated, and they got the win, and they looked better than they did at any point that they did last year. Nico Iamaleava. Yeah.
What I'll say about this game for Tennessee is that under Joey Aguilar, this offense looks how it's supposed to look. They had an offense where it was balanced, but when they throw the ball, they're throwing that ball down the field, and Joey Aguilar is the quarterback that's going to do that. 16 for 28, 247 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He went out and did that. But by all means, this Syracuse team still played pretty offensively. This Syracuse team still played pretty well. The Notre Dame transfer Steve Angeli, 23 for 40 pass and 274 yards, 1 touchdown. Did have an interception, but you're playing against a top SEC team. The running back Yassine Willis, 23 carries for 91 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dominant game, win, lose, or tie. You can't even tie in college football, but even doesn't matter the score, just dominant game from that running back. And then the Texas transfer, John Cook, a lot of eyes on him in the offseason after his drama at Washington. 6 for 58 and a touchdown. So I don't really count out Syracuse. I think that they went out into this game and they just did what they could do. I never saw Syracuse coming out and winning this game against Tennessee anyway. But for what they went up against, for what they were given, they played well against what they had. I'll say that for them. The next game on our list goes all the way down into the late night hours of Utah versus UCLA. Nico Iamaleava, all this drama, all this money going into this season. You would think he would come out into his home opener and perform, and then you walk out and get 43-10 thrashed by the Utah Utes. Straight up thoughts on this game, Joey?
UCLA was a joke. Just a complete joke with like all of this drama. Like, I don't even think this is what they had in the vision for NIL, because like NIL, it's like athletes could get paid by other like companies for their name, image, and likeness. That's what it stands for. And now it's just used. Whoever school can pay more money gets the player. That's basically what it's turned into. Anyway, so off the topic of NIL, because NIL's it's an entire other thing. We can get into that. But yet all this drama, all of this to score, what was it, 10 points? 10 points. That's, you got to at least show out and keep it a competitive game, even if you lose. But this team, UCLA, is, when was the last time they were relevant? I'm just trying to think of that.
Josh Rosen.
Yeah, probably. I honestly keep forgetting Josh Rosen was a quarterback.
2018. You give it 2018.
2018 Josh Rosen. Which, yeah, exactly. But yeah, just all this drama for just 10 points. They're the worst team in Los Angeles. Go Trojans.
Now, I don't want to be too negative. UCLA does suck. But let's go onto the other side of the game. The now Heisman candidate, I'm pretty sure number 4 in the Heisman voting, Von Dampier in Utah, playing amazing football. 21 for 25, 206 yards and 2 touchdowns, 86.5 QBR, plus 16 carries, 87 yards and 1 touchdown. We really overlooked him for player of the week for this week, but this is a dominant Utah team. And as the Big 12 guy, honestly, with how unsure I've seen the Big 12 be, I think Utah can come out and win the conference this year. Honestly, Colorado is not. Colorado.
Well, Colorado was never going to win the conference.
Shh. Let me dream. Colorado just
I'm not going to dream they were never going to win the conference.
Unsure. Kansas State showed in the past 2 weeks why they haven't earned it. Baylor lost their spot. I haven't been keeping up with Texas Tech, but I did speak with a Big 12 expert, said Texas Tech was a team to look out for. I don't know how they're doing. Cincinnati lost to Dylan Raiola, the Patrick Mahomes clone, in the first week. They showed why they didn't deserve it. But Utah came out against a high-profile team and beat them into the ground on their own home turf. So, if you ask me, I think that Utah could come out and win the conference this year just straight up. Just straight up win the conference this year. But the next game we're going to get into is the next ranked matchup. Notre Dame versus Miami. And to be frank, Carson Beck came out of this after getting a lot of hate as a Georgia quarterback, having to replace Stetson Bennett, who in the NFL isn't doing much, but in his college career
What has Stetson
proved
Bennett done in the NFL? He's done nothing besides like being like a preseason legend. Anyways,
proved himself as probably one of the best Georgia quarterbacks to ever do it as a walk-on. So, what do you see out of Carson Beck and this Miami team for the future?
just a very solid team. Like I think there's a chance they can maybe go to heights they didn't go with Cam Ward, but I still think it's going to be harder with the ACC being better this year than they were last year, in my opinion. But you know,
Like this Miami team a lot more than the Cam Ward team. I will say that I think the Cam Ward team was much more talented, but I think that Mario Cristobal as a coach has never had that much talent on his hands before. So when they lost the
and
games that they
also
did lose to Georgia
and
Tech
also
and
they
Iowa
did have
State,
the best, and also obviously having the best quarterback in college football last year.
yeah, the best quarterback in college football, sure. Um,
Yeah, he's better than Shador.
okay,
We can get into
okay,
this. He was better than Shador. He is better than Shador. There's a
okay.
reason Cam Ward
I'll
was
give it
one
to
and
him.
was in the fifth round.
I'll give it to him.
Anyway,
I'll give it to him. Um,
I got
yeah,
one. Can we create now that one now?
I think that now that Mario Cristobal knows what to do with talent, I see this Miami team competing well against the Florida States and the Clemsons and the NC States of the ACC this year. Just straight up Carson Beck, 20 for 31, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then probably the play of the week for this week, the one-handed catch by CJ Daniels, the receiver, 5
Which is in the
catches.
which is in the what's it in the thumbnail for this episode.
Absolutely. When I make it.
I made
46
it. I already
yards.
made that.
All right, he made the thumbnail.
I have
46
credit for
yards
that.
and 1 touchdown. On the other side of things, Notre Dame still did play well. CJ Carr making his
Yeah.
first start
I
proved
don't want
himself, in my opinion.
Miami. I don't think Miami upsetting Notre Dame should be like should be like used to rip down Notre Dame. They still play very solid after the national championship appearance, and yeah, they should still be a team to look out for as the season keeps going.
Yeah, CJ Carr in his first start, 19 for 30, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah Love did go a little missing in this game, 10 carries for 33 yards. Didn't really make that many plays until fourth quarter. But the next game, Virginia Tech in South Carolina, both of the plays of the week coming out of this game. For the Vakari Swain 80-yard kick return was amazing. But this South Carolina team, this game kind of left me unsure. Now, I was a big Kyron Drones fan last year. I liked his game. I liked him as a quarterback. But we knew Virginia Tech wasn't going to be much. But the last time Virginia Tech was something, Michael Vick was playing quarterback. That was back before back before I was conceived. So,
All right, now
this
I don't
South
think you're
Carolina
forgetting.
team, good.
It was just about Michael Vick. I keep forgetting if he went to Virginia or Virginia Tech.
This South Carolina team, though, kind of left me unsure about them as an identity. They had high expectations going into this year. Lenore Sellers as a quarterback, Nick Harbor, the absolute cheat code in college football. But this game kind of left me unsure. Sellers did play okay, 12 for 19, 209 yards and a touchdown, 13 for 25 and a touchdown, and then Nick Harbor 3 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown. I think if it wasn't for that kick return by Vakari Swain, this game is much closer than we think. And I think potentially with the way that Kyron Jones, he did have 2 picks, but the way he was moving the ball at some points, if he could have moved the ball like that more consistently, there's a universe where I think Virginia Tech wins that game. But that's out of the picture. The next game is the game that everybody was talking about, and then just like that, nobody was talking about. TCU versus UNC. Bill Belichick put the jacket back on, decided that he couldn't leave coaching for too long, came back to college,
Put the short sleeve hoodie on.
he thought it was sweet, and then our second player of the week for week 1, Josh Hoover, came in and told Bill, this isn't the NFL. 27 for 36, 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, 79.8 QBR. Stats up front don't really give you much, but when you watch the game, all you saw was Josh Hoover dicing the North Carolina defense. Now, granted, for me personally, I don't know about you, but for me personally, that North Carolina defense was some of the worst defense I've ever seen out of a college team.
Terrible effort.
Terrible defense. TCU could definitely be another dangerous team in the Big 12. Kavorian Barnes played really well. 11 carries, 113 yards, and a touchdown. Jordan Dwyer played well. 9 receptions, 136 yards, and a touchdown. I like this TCU team to potentially win. I think a Utah TCU Big 12 championship isn't too far-fetched after the first week. But what I will say about this North Carolina team, Max Johnson, what a comeback story for him, like completely clean break of his leg after the first game of the game last year against Minnesota, that came out into this game and earned his starting job back, I would say, against Gio Lopez. But a lot to I feel like there's a lot to pick up for Bill Belichick. One, getting back into coaching so soon, and two, realizing this is a different game than the NFL. And I feel like, especially in college football, there's definitely still a teaching moment for college players, for the freshmen and the sophomores that are playing. And I don't think that Bill is used to doing that after coaching a successful NFL team for decades. But I think that give Bill a few more years, let him get back into the game. North Carolina is going to be a team to reckon with soon. Now going into week 2, about 50 minutes in, we still have a lot more games to go. Starting off with FIU versus Penn State. Penn State came out to win, a little bit of a shocker though, 0-34. But early in that game, FIU was competing. We did have a week 2 player of the week in that game, Jeremiah Smith, who did have, I believe, 2 touchdowns. Let's see, 5 receptions. Oh, wait. I meant Katron Allen. Katron Allen.
We're talking about Penn State.
Yeah, Katron Allen, 16 carries, 144 rushing yards, 9 yards per rush, 1 rushing touchdown against FIU. Great game for him. But that game left me a little unsure about Penn State going into the season. But knowing Penn State, knowing who they are,
they'll choke.
Always unsure about Penn State early in the season. They're always going to drop a few games. They're always going to have a game that you're worried about. But especially for where this team got last year, the college football quarterfinal.
But that doesn't really count because SMU and Boise State. No disrespect to them as organizations, but it's like still
true. But
it's still like it's
say
not
what you want,
Oregon or Notre Dame.
Say what you want. They still did keep Drew Aller. They still kept the 2 players that got them there, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. And then you're coming out this flat. How long is it going to be before James Franklin gets on that hot seat? Like, really?
I mean, probably should. I mean,
I'm tired of it.
Like, I mean, yeah, James Franklin should probably still be on the hot seat. He has never been able to win the big game. He's never really had any chance. He never really, I think, if I remember, he hasn't beat Ohio State. He hasn't beat Michigan. He has a record of. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say he can't win the big game.
He has a record of 12-26 against top 25 teams, 3-17 against top 10 teams, and 1-15 against top 5 teams. Like,
I wouldn't even say that he can't win the big game. I would say that
good teams.
Yeah, I would say that he can't even win the big games, but the games that he's supposed to let his team dominate, he struggles in those games too. And that's just been a problem for years since Saquon Barkley was the Penn State running back, since Trace McSorley and the song came out. That's been a big problem for Penn State.
But like Micah was a freshman.
But where do you see Penn State at this year in the Big Ten? Especially with, we're going to get into Ohio State next, but I don't think Michigan is going to compete that well. We're going to get into them too. So where do you see Penn State at this year?
I mean, probably just like last year, like probably right behind Ohio State and Oregon. Oregon, obviously, like with Penn State, just not they just obviously have talent. That's the big thing. They have the talent. They have the talent. I just don't think they have the coach. And yeah, they don't have the coach. I don't think James Franklin, until he proves that he can like even stay competitive in the game, because like that game against Notre Dame, I remember the final score 27-24. It was not 27-24. It was like 27-10. Like Notre Dame just dominated throughout that game, from what I remember. And until James Franklin proves that he can keep it somewhat competitive, not based off box score, then then Penn State will not be going anywhere. And I cannot wait to see it. I cannot wait to see him keep failing.
Next game, we're not really going to get into this game because there's nothing to really get into. Just want to highlight this game because we did have another player of the week in this game. Ohio State pummeling Grambling. We knew they would do that.
Oh,
But
whatever. Yeah.
Jeremiah
Jeremiah
Smith,
Smith.
5 receptions, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. A player that I didn't pick for player of the week, but did play exceptional in this game. Julian Sayin, 18 for 19, only missing one throw, and that throw was an interception. Really no incompletions in this game. 106 yards, 4
The ball has
touchdowns.
went in. The ball has touched someone's hand during the entire game. Let's just say that.
80.9 QBR. Not much to get into. We knew Ohio State was going to be Ohio State in that game. Oklahoma State, Oregon. Box score, not much talking about, but leading up to the game, there was a lot to talk about. With Mike Gundy's comments on how the teams where he was being real when he said this, but saying it from a coach perspective and then going out and losing by 66 points there's not much to say. But he said something along the lines of teams that have a lot of money are always going to be with the way college football is now. It does not matter how good you are. The teams with the money are the teams that are going to win games because now
Obviously,
everybody's going to chase money.
obviously, especially with Nike's deal they have with Oregon for the like unlimited NIL money. Oregon's just going to be like teams like Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Michigan, give me the Georgia. They're all going to be the top notch teams just because they can play, and the team like Missouri will not be the most competitive.
Yeah, in this game, we did
Missouri
have
was
a
just the first
player
team that
of the
came out.
week. We did have a player of the week, Dante Moore, 16 for 21, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns, 86 QBR. No way to go around it. Blowout by Oregon. Now, I do want to, after what we said about Arch Manning, there is a game that I want to get into that I did not have on the list at first, but we could take a little time to go over it. The Texas San Jose State game. Now, it was San Jose State. I don't want to get too high on a horse and say anything too crazy, but Arch Manning came into this one with a chip on his shoulder, and he
Yeah.
proved that he can live up to being a Manning in this game. 19 for 30, 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. So, after this week, what's the verdict on Arch Manning?
If he doesn't break every single record for a quarterback, then he's a failure. No, I'm kidding. He looked much more comfortable in the pocket. That's the big thing. He looked much more comfortable. He felt like he better connected with his receivers, and he just like if he keeps playing like this, Texas can actually compete. It just depends if they will be able to beat the top dogs. That's really it.
That's really it. Next game on the list, Troy versus Clemson. I personally watched this game, and this was Clemson's game to lose, and they almost lost it if it wasn't for the fourth quarter that they had. Genuinely, like the way they rallied in the fourth quarter, it was monumental. I'll say that. It was a monumental comeback, but I've never seen a team be so down. They came out of the second half. Went into halftime down 16-3, and then all in the third quarter they brought it to 16-20, and they won 16-27. But gonna keep coming back to the topic. This is Clemson's conference to lose. If they're having to have second half rallies against a team like Troy, then can we even say that they're a competitor for the season?
I mean, if this is how it looks for the rest of the year, then no, they won't be. They won't be because I mean, you have to be blowing out teams like Troy. Like they have to be just blowing out these teams that are like much underneath you than like everyone else, and then like competing with the top dogs. So if they're playing like this, there's no way they can win the Big Ten over teams like Miami, NC State, Florida State, etc. And I still think they are more talented than all those teams. I still think they are better. Like they're maybe more well coached than all those other teams. But I still think it's their conference to lose. But if they keep playing like this, then it's not. It's not their conference. Just plain simple.
The next game we're gonna rapid fire here. Heading into an hour. Illinois versus Duke. Illinois came out and thrashed Brett Bielema. Luke Altmaier came out into this game. Started off good for Duke. Came out and thrashed 45 to 19. Once again, Luke Altmaier played great. 32 for 31, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns. The starter, Darian Mensah for Duke, did have a great game. I'm pretty sure he is in the Heisman running right now. 23 for 34, 344 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not the greatest game for Duke in the box score, but I personally would say that Duke definitely has the potential to make some noise this year in the ACC. Not a lot of noise, but enough to mess some things
Just
up.
like you're not like okay, people might talk about you going into next year.
One of those type teams, yeah. Now, let's get into our upset predictions. If you were not on the Instagram, the upset predictions for week 2 were that Mississippi State was to beat Arizona State, UNLV was to beat UCLA, and Army was going to beat Kansas State. And we went 3-4-3, starting off with Mississippi State versus Arizona State, and straight up, Mississippi State came out and won that game. Proved they wanted it more, especially after the way that Mississippi State played last year. Far and away the worst team in the SEC. But they came out, and I'll say front center, they played amazing in that game.
Yeah, that's just the truth. They played great all sides of the ball, offense, defense, special teams. Not much to really say.
But the next game on the list, a game we wanted to talk about earlier, USF versus Florida.
Finally, I'm interested in. Anyway, I'm kidding. You know what I mean. Florida, a bunch of damn frauds.
True.
No,
Florida.
I'm still a little mad about.
Florida did not.
About March Madness. Texas Tech upsetting Florida in March Madness, and we know how that went.
We do know how that went.
Anyways, I still have a little.
Those who know.
I still have a little problem.
Tuning in, those who know. But USF came into this game just like they came into the Boise game. Proved they just wanted it more. Byron Brown.
This team is hungry. I don't know for what, but they're hungry.
Byron Brown, 23 for 36, 263 yards, and 1 touchdown. 17 carries for 66 yards. Keyshawn Singleton, a star receiver that they have, 2 receptions for 75 yards and a touchdown. Just Alex Golesh, the head coach, and this team, very interesting once again. But let's talk about Florida. We remember earlier in the year, DJ Lagway said at the SEC meeting, it doesn't matter who you are, spot the ball, you got to play the Gators. USF spotted that ball and played the Gators, and they beat the Gators. So DJ Lagway didn't play too bad. 23 for 33, 222 yards, 1 touchdown. But a loss to USF, who many people think still is a college football playoff team. So we can't completely put USF away. But where do you see Florida after losing to a Group of 5 team?
Obviously, you still have DJ Lagway, who has all the physical tools to be one of the best QBs in college football. But it honestly just depends. Like, I mean, he's just the QB. He can't do it alone. It's going to be hard to keep up with the LSU's, Georgia's, and Texas's. But Florida's heading in the right direction after how many years has it been of misery for them?
18.
18? Yeah, there we go. After 18 years of misery, this is a step in the right direction. With obviously the game, like he said, USF just wanted it more. USF more. I don't know what they're hungry for, but it's like they want something and they're damn well working for it.
All right, speed blitz time. Iowa versus Iowa State. One of the rivalry games we had posted on our Instagram. Iowa State did come out with that win. Rocco Becht beating the Hawkeyes, winning the Cy-Hawk Trophy, 13-16. Our game of the week for Saturday Classics, Michigan versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma came out against a flat Bryce Underwood offense and beat the Wolverines 13-24. John Mateer, who many people think will win the Heisman, had a great game in that game. Baylor versus SMU, absolute thriller down to the end. Baylor would end up taking the win over the Mustangs 48-45. A classic Texas rivalry there. Ole Miss versus Kentucky. Last year, Kentucky did come out with the upset over Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, all of those boys. Mississippi Miss came back and won 30-23 at Kentucky versus Zach Calls. Zach Calls out a new SEC quarterback. A game that I watched personally, Virginia versus NC State, came down to the wire and was an amazing game. This is the main game why I have NC State as high as I do. NC State taking out that win 31-35, game-winning pick from one of their defensive ends. I forget his name, but amazing game down to the end. Kansas versus Missouri, the other rivalry game we had posted on our Instagram. Missouri came out. Bo Pribula, the former Penn State quarterback, came out and won that game against Jalen Daniels, 31-42. A game I want to slow down a bit for to talk about. Delaware versus Colorado. They come out with that win 7-31.
How do you feel?
Interesting things to talk about. We saw all three quarterbacks in that game.
That's some Browns crap.
Kaidon Salter, I was so high on you after that Georgia Tech game, and then come out in this game. You get the first score on the board. Love that. Thank you for that. Overall, played horrible. There's no easy way to put it. 13 for 16, 102 passing yards. 18 for 24, 8 rushes, 24 yards, and a touchdown rushing. I don't really think that tells the story of how he played. But Julian Lewis came in 2 for 4, 8 yards. He is a freshman. Wasn't expecting to play. He's probably going to redshirt for the rest of the year. But not much to say about him. But the guy we do have to talk about, our last player of the week for week 2, Ryan Staub. 7 for 10, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. As the third string quarterback, those stats only playing in 2 games this season, 2 quarters. A great game out of him. He threw the ball well. Sincere Brown, 4 receptions, 120 yards, and a touchdown. DeKalen Taylor, 4 receptions, 49 yards, and a touchdown. Michael Welch scored. Started off sloppy, but picked it up towards the end. Had a decent game. Picking back up speed. Ohio with the upset over West Virginia, 10-17. Thriller of a game. Another game we had on our upset watch. Army versus Kansas State. Army came out with the win over the Wildcats. Another disappointing game from the Wildcats. Proving once again why they don't deserve the Big 12. 24-21 Army win. Vanderbilt, Diego Pavia and the boys came out and beat Kyron Drones and Virginia Tech Hokies. I was forgetting their mascot. 44-20. Boston College versus MSU came down to the absolute wire. double overtime win for Aiden Childs and Spartans 40-42. And finally, the last game on our upset list to get us to 3-0, ULV upsetting UCLA 30-23. That is weeks 1 and 2 all wrapped up in this episode. Next episode, we will come back with our week 3 previews, early Heisman hopefuls, and I forgot our plans for next week. Conference championship hopefuls and playoff hopefuls. This is Joey and Chase signing off. We'll see you on the next episode of Saturday Classics Podcast.
See ya.